The news and the drama surrounding the production of Rust, the Alec Baldwin starring Western that, the production ended with the tragic passing of the cinematographer who was shot when a live bullet was somehow managed to get on set and into the gun that Alec Baldwin was using. And there are criminal proceedings and trials going on surrounding that right now. As a matter of fact, one of them has just come to a conclusion. As the armorer, the person responsible on set for all the weapons and the props and stuff like that, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, I believe is her full name. Her trial has been going on and the verdict has come in and she has been found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. I already saw some people asking, why wasn't she found guilty of murder? Well, because she clearly had no intention of harming anybody. Like this was clearly intentional. This was the right charge for her to face. Involuntary manslaughter was the right charge, and she's been found guilty. And a lot of interesting things came up in this trial and with this verdict. And Alec Baldwin himself is also going to be facing an involuntary manslaughter charge pretty soon. Something I don't think he should be charged with, but we'll get to that in a minute. But this is what came out. Some very interesting things came out of this trial. As we go over and take a look at this, the prosecutor said this. She said she had get this, 6, the investigation turned up, live rounds on that movie set. The earliest date that I can track them for you is October 10th, 2021. This is the prosecutor, Morrissey, said during the Wednesday's closing arguments. 6, and she failed to ferret them out for 12 days. What that means is that she wasn't shaking any dummy rounds. She wasn't testing anything. If she's not checking the dummy ammunition during the pendency of the filming to make sure that those rounds that are designed to look like live rounds are in fact dummy rounds, then this was a game of Russian roulette every time an actor had a gun with dummies. One of the big questions that a lot of us asked when this horrible tragedy happened was, how the hell did a live round, let alone 6 live bullets, end up getting on set? And apparently the investigation never figured that out. The investigation never came up with any answers as to how these live rounds even got on set in the first place. But what became really interesting too through the process of the trial was finding out what the process is supposed to be, right? Because the process of this whole thing is supposed to be a mixture. There's a 2-pronged fail-safe. First, when you're dealing with, prop guns, is that you have the armorer, in this case, Gutierrez Reed. The armorer is supposed to be the de facto person, right? This is the person responsible to making sure, hey, everything's safe. These are all fake dummy rounds. There's no real bullets here. She's supposed to be checking them. She's supposed to verify as the armorer that everything's good. Everything's fine. What then we found out in the trials that there's a second stage to that. Because once the armorer confirms that a prop gun is completely safe, it is then the assistant director who then takes the gun, rechecks it themselves to make sure everything is fine, and then the assistant director is supposed to take that gun and hand it to the actor. Well, as it turns out, in this situation, the assistant director also didn't do their job. This also comes to us from CNN, who wrote the following. Assistant film director David Halls admitted during the trial that he was negligent in checking the gun and did not properly look through all the rounds in the gun's chamber when Gutierrez Reed presented it to him. He said she opened up the latch to the revolver. I recall seeing 3 to 4 rounds, but of what I believed to be dummy rounds, Halls testified. He later added, I don't recall her fully rotating the cylinder. Halls then yelled, cold gun, before the weapon was handed to Baldwin. a remark meant to indicate that the firearm did not have any live rounds. According to a court document, Halls took a plea deal in 2023 for his role in the shooting. Okay, so point of failure number one. The armorer clearly never checked to see that these were dummy rounds. I mean, I get it. You don't think live rounds are going to be there anyway, but her specific job was to make sure that the gun was prepped, ready to go, and completely safe. Then just in case she misses something, the assistant director is then supposed to take the gun, check to see that they're dummy rounds, and then pronounce cold gun, which means to everybody on set, this gun is a completely safe prop. By pronouncing on set cold gun, they just said to the director, to the actors, to the cinematographers, just told everybody on set, safe weapon. So the armorer messed it up. Then the assistant director admitted negligence because the assistant director didn't actually check it himself before declaring cold gun. And then it got handed off to the actor. Now, this is where it also gets really interesting. Variety wrote in their coverage of it that Baldwin had been, when the shooting happened, Baldwin had been practicing for a scene and he was drawing and pointing a revolver with guidance from Hutchins and Joel Souza, the film's director, according to a probable cause statement filed in January of 2023. The prosecution argued Gutierrez Reed, that's the armorer girl, failures allowed 6 live rounds to make their way onto set, and that she did not conduct vital safety checks of the gun and ammunition that would have caught the live rounds. In her closing arguments, the prosecutor said that there was no evidence someone else was to blame for the shooting, adding Gutierrez Reed was, quote unquote, the autonomous decision maker with regards to gun safety on set. So guys, the tragedy of this, as you know, this cinematographer Hutchins dies as a result of this, as often as it is with tragedies, there's usually not one point of failure. It's usually a domino effect of a couple of points of failure. You know, Gutierrez, and by the way, Gutierrez, she is the daughter of a legendary Hollywood armorer who was the armorer on movies like LA Confidential, Miami Vice, did all the armor stuff for Brad Pitt and Val Kilmer and like all this kind of stuff. And he trained her himself. This was not her first movie. She had already done her first movie. This was now going to be her second project that she was an armorer on. And yet, according to the court findings, never checked the weapons. The assistant director never checked the weapon, and then proclaimed to everybody on set, including the director, cold gun, this thing's thing. And then, according to this police report, the director and Hutchins herself, who tragically passed away, were guiding and directing Alec Baldwin in their rehearsal with the gun. I mean, this is just so avoidable. And as of right now, according to the reports, she's not been sentenced yet. Gutierrez Reed has not been sentenced, but they say the involuntary manslaughter charge carries up to 18 months in jail, and I believe a $5,000 fine and community service. So she may get no jail time. She might get 6 months. She might get the full 18 months. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, clearly she's going to be scarred for life, and clearly she never intended for anybody to get hurt, but this was severe negligence. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Factor. You know, guys, some days it's great to prepare your own meal, but some days it's great to have wonderful, delicious meals already ready to go. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals makes eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. They've got snacks, smoothies, and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. And guys, you get to save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So guys, head to factormeals.com factormeals.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 to get 50% off. That's code Campea50 at factormeals.com/Campea50 to get 50% off. Anyway, Chris, this is obviously a story we've been following. When something like this happens and somebody in the movie making community passes away, it's a huge tragedy, especially when it's avoidable. What were your main takeaways from the trial results, from the guilty verdict? What do you think happens from here moving forward? Because again, Alec Baldwin himself is also still going to face charges for this, and we'll see what happens with that. But what's your takeaway from all this?
Learning about the 6 live rounds that
Yeah.
did not get taken care of. It is woeful negligence. This was so completely avoidable if people had done their due diligence. And that's what's really sad here. The article that we brought up here has statements from Hutchinson's parents and sisters who are hoping that they get, their daughter, their sister, justice. It's a very complicated issue because obviously, yes, it was not intentional, but that kind of neglect cannot go unnoticed. Someone died because somebody didn't do their job. And I know throughout us talking about this story, throughout us reporting on this, people have constantly written in the comments too, how could an actor not know the difference between a live gun and a cold gun? Even when we go through weapons training, you guys, the point is that it looks and feels real. That's why the armor is there. They have to help us out with these things. They are the first stop, last stop on making sure we are safe on set. Despite any weapons training we might do ourselves, we're also not supposed to check that gun and mess with it any further after we've been handed it. There are other protocols put in place.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I saw so many people saying, well, Baldwin himself should have checked the gun. He's not supposed to do that. Like he's like not just it's not his responsibility to. He's not supposed to mess around with it on that level. It's part of the rules.
It's part of what we're supposed to do. And other people saying, well, he pulled the trigger and why was he pointing at her? That was the shot. That was the shot that Hutchins was helping him line up and everything. They were practicing that move. He pulled the trigger because that's how the scene goes. And if you were told it's a cold gun, you don't think there's a live bullet. You would never think somebody just gives you a live bullet on set. That's wild, especially after going through all these things. Now, obviously, Alec Baldwin is still going to have to go back to court again. He's going to face this involuntary manslaughter charge. Film sets are going to be very different. That's my takeaway from this. Film sets are going to be wildly different after this. And frankly, they should have been different after,
100%.
After The Crow, after other incidents. I think we are going to see people using CGI instead to have those kind of gun bangs go off and things because it's not worth it. It is not worth it to have somebody's life lost because of these protocols not being followed. And if it doesn't change to that full extent of no longer using these blanks and everything, you are going to see so many more protocols put in place when it comes to armors. There are going to be more systems, more protections, and I still don't know if people are going to feel comfortable with that after this.
You raised a really good question and point about the fact that this is something that should have never been we are so past the age when you need to even have these dummy rounds. I mean, one of the big things that happened immediately afterwards, too, the Nathan Fillion show, The Rookie.
The Rookie.
It was a show about police. They immediately, the showrunner said, no fake rounds anymore. All this stuff is going to be done in post. So they're going to have these props, no fake rounds in them, nothing like that. We're going to put in smoke and the sound effects and all that kind of stuff will come afterwards. Something that, honestly, they had the ability to do 10 years ago. And especially after, what happened to Brandon Lee and the fact that granted, it's happened once out of 500,000 times it's been done. I get that, but it was just so easily avoidable. This is stuff, I would even argue it's easier to do this in post than all this stuff they have to go through.
1,000%.
I don't get that. Anyway, Rob, again, you saw the transcripts. You saw what happened in the trial. What's your main takeaway from this when you look at what happened there?
Well, I mean, Chris laid it out pretty well. The thing about a movie set is you're not supposed to have something that's real. Everything is fake on a movie set. And that's why safety is of a primary concern when you're ever dealing with fire or you're ever dealing with anything that can be potentially hazardous. So this idea, I mean, when you take any kind of a firearms safety training course of any kind outside of the movie industry, you're always looking, you're always checking the gun. You're always seeing if there's a bullet in the chamber, it's part of the course. But when you're on a movie set, there's no reason for an actor should not, I know it sounds counterproductive to anybody who's ever had any gun safety training, but on a movie set, there's no reason for an actor to believe he's ever been handed a gun that has live ammunition in it, because there will never be live ammunition on a set. And as Chris pointed out, an actor is not supposed to mess around with a prop gun. That's why
there's actual liability issues if the actors start messing around with the gun. They can't do it.
That's why there's an armorer. There's literally a paid person on set whose job it is to handle the gun. There's even like a chain of title almost, the way a weapon is handled and who can handle it. And so it's, I know everyone's like, well, we're Americans. We love our guns, and everybody would tell you that, well, there's no reason he shouldn't check, but there's no reason he should check on a movie set. That's not the way it works. And protocol is very, very important on a movie set, not just for firearms, but for anything. And when anything to do with something that's potentially hazardous, you have everybody very hyper aware of that. It's the real concerning thing is, why was there ever live rounds on a movie set at all? How did that even happen? And that's the thing that freaks me out.
Yeah.
I get the understanding some people have about, well, ultimately, he's the one, Alec Baldwin was the one with the gun in his hand. But again, there was a system in place that you had an armorer whose job it was to make sure that the weapons were safe. And then even after that, a part of the process is that the assistant director, like the actor doesn't go over and get the gun. An assistant director has to take it, double check the weapon themselves. So that's 2 points. That's 2 fail-safe points. And then it was declared cold gun. It was declared that the director believed it was a cold gun. The cinematographer thought it was a cold gun. That's why they were directing Alec Baldwin and telling him to point his gun and all that kind of stuff, because they all believed. And so I just don't see, I saw one legal guy on one of the debate show. They were talking about this case and said, if we're going to say that the actor who has been told by the experts, this is now a safe prop, is responsible for what happens to the prop, then anytime an actor gets in a car and drives for a scene, if the tire blows and the car crashes into somebody, the actor's responsible, because the actor should check every part of the car before they get in a car. Nobody would do that. I mean, it's just utterly preposterous.
That does set a weird precedent if you go into it that deep. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so anything that an actor uses, they're now supposed to be the expert in that thing. And if something goes wrong with that thing, the actor's now responsible instead of the people who are actually responsible for that stuff. Look, it's just, now, look, one of the things that I said on open mic yesterday, that we don't know all the details yet.
Sure,
we may find out. This, by the way, I am making this up. This is pure hyperbole. I'm just saying this as an example. We may find out as the court trial goes on that somebody gave Alec Baldwin a box of real bullets because for his birthday, hey, you're shooting a Western and here's a fun little gift, like a box of bullets because you're shooting a Western. And then Alec Baldwin brought that box of bullets onto set and left it laying around and they got mixed in with, I'm just making that up. But what I'm saying is there could be things that come up that we're not aware of right now that would suggest that Alec Baldwin has more responsibility to this than just being the actor on set who was handed what he was told was a completely safe prop. And maybe we'll find out stuff like that. It may not be as obvious as he brought the box of bullets on set, but it could be something else like that. And then again, it brings up the question, why isn't the director being charged? I mean, ultimately, the director is the person responsible on set for everything that's going on. Why isn't the director being charged for telling Alec Baldwin to point his gun? And obviously we know the answer to that. Because they were told it was a cold gun. There was no reason the director should have believed that the gun was live. But anyway, it's a very stuffy situation.
Yeah, I think, Rob, you kind of nailed it there with it's very counterintuitive to what gun safety is.
Yeah.
So if it's counterintuitive to it, why do we do it at all? Why this shouldn't be on a set if it is contrary to every instinct you have as a human being when handling a firearm. And for anyone who's ever gone through gun safety, I'm from Texas. I had to go to gun training in case it was ever an issue. And it's so counterintuitive to how you're supposed to behave around a loaded weapon because it's not supposed to be real. So why are we doing all of this? Why don't we just do the CGI? I feel like it makes so much more sense.
Anyway, a total tragedy. And, it's going to be interesting to see what the judge and jury decide is going to be the sentencing for Hannah Gutierrez Reed. I mean, obviously she has no priors or anything like that. So I don't know if she's going to get jail time or not. If she does, it's maxed out at 18 months. And then all eyes will be turned to the Alec Baldwin situation where we find out if we already know all the pertinent information or if there's actually some really important stuff we're not aware of yet. That is going to make it more complicated. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the jury and the verdict that came in on the Gutierrez Reed case? Do you think with the details that we got that it's justified? How much time do you think she's going to get? How do you think this is going to affect, if at all, the Alec Baldwin part of this whole thing? Whatever you guys think or feel, jump on down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.